Chapter 3047. Bear struggled unwillingly. He breathed his last unwillingly. Helios just stared at him. Disser, Zedia, Nina, and Holmes watched as Audon merged with the black demon heart. Is it really okay to just watch? Zedia said with a frown. His transformation seems a bit out of the ordinary. Disser's senses were the sharpest. He could clearly feel Audon's aura becoming larger and more terrifying. That ominous aura was constantly growing. Holmes and Nina were also a bit uneasy. Audon's aura was becoming similar to a calamity-grade beast king. Suddenly, Audon's aura retracted. The next instant his aura suddenly increased tenfold. Dun. Black demon heart. No, it should be the demon king heart. Audon's voice began to overlap, as if 6 or 7 voices were speaking at the same time. Disser, Zedia, Nina, and Holmes had never seen such a terrifying aura before. And this aura was like an anesthetic, making them unable to move. Helios faced the tyrannical Audon. It does seem a bit out of the ordinary. Helios nodded. But this black demon heart is what I need. Helios raised his arm. Suddenly countless bone spikes shot out of the ground. They pierced Audon's limbs and body with thousands of holes. Get out of my way. You want to defeat me with this little trick? Audon struggled with all his might, shattering all the bone spikes. Helith took a few steps back and clawed at Audon from afar. A giant black arm reached out of nowhere and grabbed Audon's body. Audon used all his strength to push the hand away, but at this moment, a giant body appeared out of nowhere. The Abyss Demon, Helios's corpse demon. Audon spat out a mouthful of black flames in anger, but the Abyss Demon was completely unharmed by the black flames. It opened its mouth and swallowed the black flames. Audon's body suddenly expanded and pushed the Abyss Demon's hand away. The giant body was covered in red and black lines. Tentacles reached out from his back. His figure was almost the same as the Abyss Demon. Audon roared. The tentacles on his back swept toward the Abyss Demon. But the next instant, the Abyss Demon suddenly turned into a ball of black water. Its giant body suddenly collapsed. The black liquid flowed into Aodan's mouth. Wah! What are you doing? Aodan could not resist the black water entering his body. Can't you tell? Harold said calmly. My corpse demon is missing a heart. Disser, Sildia, Nina, and Home all gasped in shock. Then shouldn't the evil heart be destroyed? Won't you be corrupted if you use this power? Gaia glanced at the 4 youths. You're all too young. How could there be any evil power? People who are controlled by power don't deserve greater power. Perhaps Audon had obtained power that rivaled Helith's, but he knew nothing about this power. Therefore, his ending could almost be predicted. That girl is scary, Zedia said softly. Disser nodded sympathetically. She didn't look much older than Zedia. However, the strength she displayed was dominating. Such a powerful enemy was powerless in front of her. Suddenly, Aodan's body exploded from the black water. The black water seeped out. At the same time, the black heart was pushed out of Aodan's chest. Mine! Give it back to me! Aodan's body was tattered, but he was still not dead. The power of the black demon's heart in his body was still delaying his death. At this time, the black water turned back into an Abyss Demon, and the black demon's heart was slowly merging into the Abyss Demon's chest. Harold looked at Aodan calmly. Bugs should go where bugs stay, Harold said coldly. No. That's mine. That's my power. You can't take it away. I can. Harold's palm went through Aodan's body. When Harold retracted her palm, Aodan's soul was also taken out. I can take everything you have. It's very easy, and you can't do anything about it. Helios easily crushed Audon's soul. Disser, Zedia, Nina, and Home felt their scalps go numb. That power and coldness made them feel numb. Harold put away the Abyss Demon and looked at the 4 behind her. Finally, she looked at Disser. I heard from the chairman that you have senses that are close to his. How about it? Join my team. Harry's invited Disser. Harold, that's against the rules, Gaia said unhappily. You should at least let him know how many teams we have before letting him choose. At this time, Jalanash and Elite also walked over. Norma was the only one who didn't come. However, Norma herself also had an extremely powerful perception. Therefore, she didn't really need Disser. Can I join your team? Nina looked at Harold with admiration. Sorry, no, you don't have the right, Harold said calmly. Everyone. They seemed to hear Nina's broken heart. Among you, only Disser is an official member, Ungalit said. The three of you are outer members. Huh. Daisei was dumbfounded. He didn't expect to become an official member. In his opinion, he was the most likely member of the external committee. After all, his combat power was so weak. Our team's combat power is almost perfect, so we don't lack combat power, Gaia said. However, there are too few perception-type spiritualists and even fewer outstanding ones. Other than the nightmare team that didn't come, the other teams don't have any perception-type spiritualists, especially someone as outstanding as you. As for the three of them, Celia, Nina, and Holmes all lowered their heads. To be honest, our teams often face enemies of that level. If you're forced to participate in a battle of that level, what do you think your chances of surviving are? How long can I surpass you? Nina asked Harold. Clearly, Harold's words hurt her pride. At the same time, it aroused her competitive spirit. I won't wait for you here, Harold said arrogantly. And I'll never give you a chance to surpass me. Then I'll surpass you. I'll show you, Nina said unconvinced. Not only you, I'll even surpass the president. Gaia patted Nina's shoulder. I believe in you. Chapter 3048. On the way back to HQ, Nina quietly tugged on Jalanash's sleeve, who was sitting next to her. Why did that big guy answer me like that? Did he think I couldn't do it? Yes, Jalanash answered, nodding. You think so too? Jalanash thought for a moment and nodded. Me too. Is there no one who thinks highly of me? Although all of our goals are to surpass the president, all we've seen so far is despair. If you become an official member in the future, and know our president's battle records, you'll probably be in despair too. That only means that your willpower isn't strong enough. Nina looked at Jalanash and the others as if to say, you're a bunch of inexperienced people. Jalanash didn't explain either. The others in the car heard them too. Those who knew were too lazy to explain, while those who didn't also felt that Nina was right. The car returned to HQ. Wes glanced at the people who had returned. How was the experience? I've broadened their horizons, Ungalit said. Just then Chen Zhao walked over. We've seen the monsters, Chen Zhao said. Now we'll send them into the dungeon. With that, Chen Zhao left, making a call as he walked. Xiaohe, you better tell Jialawin that you only have 2 days left. Do you know what that means? On the other end, Xiaohe's heart tightened. 2 days. It seemed that they had to speed up. After hanging up, Xiaohe immediately pulled Jialawin to her side. Jialawin, Mr. Chen called and reminded us that we only have 2 days left. Jialawin's expression was ugly too. Just then, coddlers and a few people from the Duke's residence walked in. Miss Jialawin, Miss Wang, we got some information from that guy. We don't know if it's true or not. In the past few days, Jialawin and Xiaohe had taught them many things as instructors of the Duke's residence. They'd also helped them break through enemies that they'd previously found difficult to break through. In fact, they performed even better than the previous generation of the Duke's residence. The new era's laboratory base, breeding grounds, and all sorts of monsters. No matter what kind of enemy they faced, Xiaohe and Jialawin performed very well, from combat ability to analysis and control of the situation. Now, almost everyone in the Duke's mansion obeyed Xiaohe and Carrie's every word. He wanted to know how strong Xiaohe and Carrie were. One time, because the Duke's mansion's higher-ups didn't trust Xiaohe and Carrie, as well as their team members' trust in Xiaohe and Carrie, the Duke's mansion's higher-ups decided to ditch Xiaohe and Carrie and organize an operation on their own. In the end, the entire army was annihilated. More than half of them were dead or injured, and the other half were captured. Cranlesis was one of the captives. After that, Xiaohe and Carrie broke into the New Era's headquarters. At that time, one of the leaders of the New Era even wanted them to watch a show, saying that he wanted them to watch how these two ignorant intruders would die. Then, everyone watched as Xiaohe and Jia Liwen slaughtered their way to the prison cell and rescued them. He even captured the leader of the New Era. Just now, Codelis said that he had received information from that person. That person was one of the upper echelons of the New Era that they had captured. Right now, The entire Duke's mansion had become Xiao He and Carrie's backyard. Most of the members of the Duke's mansion, who didn't like Xiao He and Carrie at first, had died. Even if they had different opinions, they wouldn't voice them now. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that no one would oppose Xiao He and Carrie, because of what they said. All the team members obeyed Xiao He and Carrie obediently. Going against them now would only be asking for trouble. Tell me, what information did you get? According to what the leader said, they seem to have obtained something incredible. What is it? He said God's body, Cranlisa said. However, her face was clearly filled with disbelief. It's said that all their plans are to revive God. Are you kidding me? What era is this? Why do people still believe such lies? Jialiwen said disdainfully. Whether it's true or not, at least it's useful information, Xiao He said. Do you know the details of their plan? It's said that the god is already dead. His soul has dissipated, and his body is severely damaged. All the monsters that came out of their research and experiments came from the dead god. They're all byproducts of the resurrection plan. Their real goal is to collect special bloodlines. Collect special bloodlines? Both Xiao He and Carrie were confused. You mean those who are born with special abilities? Yes, but no. What do you mean? It's said that they're ancient special bloodlines. There are 7 ancient special bloodlines in Europe, and the new era has collected 6 of them. Almost all of them have moved to Switzerland, because there's a 7th ancient special bloodline in Switzerland. They're going to obtain the 7th ancient special bloodline here. And at the same time, they're going to perform the resurrection ritual here. Then, where is the 7th relic that contains a special ancient bloodline? Luo sang. Where exactly? In Lake Geneva. Xiao He and Carrie were speechless. Luo sang was a small city, but Lake Geneva. It was more than 10 times the size of Luo sang. What kind of location was that? We don't know the exact location, Crandall said. That guy doesn't know either. But Lake Geneva is a few hundred square kilometers. How are we going to find it? There are a few islands on Lake Geneva. We can investigate their history and see which islands were inhabited by people and which islands have ancient ruins. It shouldn't be difficult. Perhaps some information was confidential to ordinary people, but it wasn't confidential to them. I think the new era people are like us. They only know the approximate location, but not the exact location. Otherwise, they wouldn't have waited until now. So we still have a chance. If we can find the exact location first, we can make preparations in advance. Whether it's to trap the new era people or destroy the so-called ancient special bloodline, we'll have more initiative. Crandall's nodded in agreement. I'll go get the information now. You better hurry. We don't have much time here, Xiao He said. Miss Wang, Miss Carrie, are you leaving? Codlendroth was stunned. Chapter 3049. The people from the Duke's mansion finally found a small island. Xiao He, Carrie, and the Duke's mansion's operation team all took a chartered plane to the island. Although the Duke's mansion wasn't very strong, it was strong in other areas, such as funding. Almost everyone was a financial warrior. Almost every member of the team was covered in expensive equipment, all of which were extremely expensive, but not easy to use. No one knew who had bought all this magic equipment. It seemed like they only cared about famous brands. Actually, there was nothing wrong with famous brands. In the spiritual world, famous alchemy workshops definitely produced more good things than unorthodox goods. But there was a problem with buying famous brands. Most of the time, famous alchemy workshops produced alchemy products for high-end spiritualists. If ordinary spiritualists wore them, they would really be accessories. As a result, the Duke's mansion's team members all wore equipment worth millions of dollars. But their combat strength was appallingly low. The purchasing staff didn't know what suited their team members, so they just bought expensive alchemy equipment. But the Duke's mansion's team members didn't know either. They just thought that they were too weak and couldn't make use of the effects of their equipment. They didn't know that if they exchanged their equipment for ordinary alchemy equipment that was worth 100 times less, their strength would at least double. Of course, Xiao He and Carrie didn't know either. They didn't like the Duke's equipment either. But their reason was the opposite. The people from the Duke's mansion felt that it was difficult to make use of the alchemy equipment. But Xiaohe and Carrie felt that the equipment not only overlapped with the properties of their own equipment, but it was also far less effective than their own equipment. After the team reached Lausanne, they took a boat to the lake island. After a few hours of sailing, they landed on an island that was about 7 or 8 square kilometers. The island wasn't very big, but it wasn't small either. Logically speaking, it should have a name. But in reality, the island wasn't even shown on the map. It only existed in confidential files. The island was covered in a dense forest. Some traces of ruins could already be seen on the outskirts. There were huge, obviously man-made stones. There were also traces of stone paths. Why is this place so dilapidated? This island should have historical research value, right? The government doesn't care? From the beginning of the last century to the present, it has been 100 years, including World War I and World War II. More than 40 research teams, exploration teams, and scientific research teams have come here. But every time people died. Some died inexplicably, and some only had 1 or 2 people left. Chapter 30-50. They rested for half a day. Finally, the 2 of them had everyone set off again. After walking for half an hour, black plants began to appear around them. Pure black plants didn't exist in the natural world. That was because melanin could absorb light and absorb heat. No plant could withstand such high heat. However, they clearly weren't natural plants. Everyone could sense weak magic power from them. And in this dark environment, they probably needed more light and heat. These black plants had broken through the originally flat stone walls. They seemed to be very powerful. Plants had a tendency to grow. Unless they were artificially transplanted, they wouldn't reproduce in a certain area for no reason. And since they could break through the stone walls, it meant that there were nutrients here that they needed, or that the environment here was more suitable for them to grow. This was a large area, and there were black plants along the way. They definitely hadn't been transplanted, or their seeds had accidentally fallen here. There had to be nutrients here that they needed. Xiaohe suddenly waved her hand. Stop. Everyone looked at Xiaohe. Carrie asked, "What's wrong?" "Something's wrong," Xiaohe said. "What did you discover?" "These plants. These black plants are dangerous," Xiaohe said. "Plants? Are they poisonous?" Xiaohe shook her head. "They're following us." "What? How is that possible?" "I purposely dripped a drop of blood on a leaf, but that drop of blood never left me. It kept moving at the same speed as us, so these plants are alive and are following us." No one doubted Xiaohe's words. They immediately grew wary of the surrounding plants. "Burn them," Carrie said. At first, everyone had felt that these black plants were dangerous, but they thought that as long as they didn't touch them, they would be fine. But now, it seemed that they had been too naive. The team members with fire spells began to cast fire spells. Moments later, the black plants on the surrounding walls were ignited. At first, everything went smoothly, but without any warning, the stone walls suddenly cracked, and a dozen burning black plants fell down. They looked like the bodies of animals or humans, with 4 limbs and a head, but most of them were covered in black plants. They were very small, perhaps not even as big as a rose. They were also struggling in pain from the flames. Everyone was surprised, even though they already knew that these weren't ordinary plants. However, he never expected that these plants were actually alive. At this time, the other black plants also drilled out of the stone walls and attacked the group. Lightning surge. A member of the team released an electric arc, which directly passed through a tunnel that was tens of meters long. However, other than the few black plants in front of him that were burnt and fell to the ground, the other black plants were almost unharmed. The lighting effect of this lightning magic was inversely proportional to its actual lethality. One had to know that these black plants were very fragile. Even an ordinary person could trample a few of them to death. However, this seemingly powerful lightning magic was only worth killing a few of them. Don't use thunder spells, they are plants. Use the fire element. Although plants were not immune to electric attacks, they were different from mammals. In mammals, electrocution can cause cardiac arrest and death. And plants don't have hearts. Therefore, if one wanted to use electricity to kill plants, they could only use a more powerful electric current to evaporate the water in the plants. If the water in the plants could not be evaporated, then this kind of attack would be meaningless. Moreover, these black plants could actually use dark magic. Although he could only use the lowest level black arrow and dark magic spike, he could still use it. However, there were so many of them, and they moved in groups that it made people's scalps go numb. Fake, use holy magic, Carrie called out. My holy magic can only heal. It doesn't have any killing power. No, they are light-averse plants, Carrie said. Don't doubt Miss Carrie's words. Hurry up, Cranley urged. Fake immediately reacted. He had always been obedient. However, this request caught him off guard. Fake immediately condensed a ball of light in his palm. The light ball shone brightly, and the surrounding black plants immediately stopped attacking. They all drilled back into the stone walls. Only the leaves and a few branches could not be retracted. Their leaves were also closed like starbecks. As expected, the group secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Carrie had reacted in time. Otherwise, these black plants would not be easy to deal with. How long can you maintain it? Carrie asked. If there are no other costs, this light spell can last forever, Fick said. However, I won't be able to use any other spells. Don't worry, leave the fighting to us. You just need to maintain this spell. The group resumed their journey. Along the way, there were still many black plants clinging to the stone walls. However, wherever they passed, the black plants would shrink. We'll be in trouble if we don't have holy magic, Xiaohe said. Fortunately, they are light-averse. Otherwise, it would be difficult to deal with them. Cranley knocked on the stone wall. The stone walls are hollow. It looks like they've been hollowed out by these living plants. What are they? Plants? Animals? They're probably the culprits that caused the deaths of the previous inspection teams. Although they are individually weak, there are too many of them. They also know magic, especially when people are sleeping. It's impossible to guard against them. After all, most people don't have the mentality to be wary of plants. They walked for about 3 hours. It was not a long time. The main reason was that some places had collapsed, and they had to clear the path. In these 3 hours, they had actually walked less than a kilometer. The underground ruins were winding downward. They were probably less than 200 meters away from where they had been 3 hours ago. However, the underground ruins were indeed huge. To be honest, I'm really curious. What kind of ancient bloodline could be preserved for hundreds of years? Xiaohe said. Normally, any liquid would dry up after being stored for decades, even if it's sealed well. Let me correct you. The ruins are estimated to be at least 3,000 years old, Colin Lisi said. Are you kidding? The Europeans 3,000 years ago were still savages, Carrie said. Xiaohe glanced at Carrie. You're a European too. They needed to find a way out of the 2 dead ends. But no matter what they chose, it was a dead end. How could they choose? Let's continue forward. Carrie finally made up her mind. But Codelis didn't know if he should dissuade Carrie at this time. Since that great demon has been staying here all this time, it means that it is not convenient for it to leave this place. Perhaps it has been sealed, restricted, or injured. It's not like we don't have a chance at all. Chapter 3052. Placing all their hopes on the enemy. This was a hopeless choice. But they had no other choice now. Fine had been following their crimson, maintaining a distance that wasn't too close or too far away. Actually, you found this place long ago, right? Carrie asked. That's right. You found this place, because we intentionally left clues. In other words, you can't deal with that big demon? Huh. It's just a strategic requirement. There's no need to pay such a high price. In other words, you can't actually pay any price to revive that so-called god. Otherwise, you wouldn't have lured us here. No, it's just getting the most benefits with the least price. That's all. Suddenly, everyone stopped in their tracks. In front of them was a courtyard. It was a huge patio. From bottom to top, there was a huge black tree. It could reach 100 meters tall. Black threads hung from the tree's branches. There were even magical beasts hanging from the threads. Emerald Liquid Demon. Without a doubt, this was the big demon they had to deal with. They couldn't win. Even if it didn't move, they still couldn't win. Just this terrifying aura alone was enough to make their hair stand on end. Xiaohe and Jiao Liwen exchanged glances. Both of them had grave expressions on their faces. If it was just the aura, it wouldn't make them lose their ability to fight. Chen Zhao's training wasn't just for them to fight against powerful enemies. One of them was that when facing enemies that they couldn't fight against, they wouldn't surrender without putting up a fight. At least they would have the ability to escape. The training was simple. It was when they talked bad about Chen Zhao behind his back. Chen Zhao would always appear at the wrong time. Compared to Chen Zhao's aura that could crush their bones, the towering black tree before them was terrifying. But it didn't suffocate them, or make them feel helpless and hopeless. After they got used to Chen Zhao's aura, there didn't seem to be any enemy that could make them give up just because of his aura. Of course, they still had a basic sense of judgment. Without a doubt, this tree demon was also at a level they couldn't fight against. This aura wasn't something a disaster-level demon could compare to. Crack, crack, crack. Right at this moment, a gust of wind blew from the heavenly well. The various magical beasts hanging on the branches swayed in the wind. Bung! A black thread with a magical beast hanging on it snapped. The 6-meter-long magical beast fell, but it didn't hit the ground. Instead, it floated up again. Roar! The demonic beast's eyes were filled with darkness. How troublesome! A corrupted demonic beast is already so strong. This great Yao's strength is truly terrifying. Let me do it, Xiao He said. This guy won't be easy to deal with, Carrie said with a frown. But Xiao He's reaction surprised Jiao Liwen. Usually, no matter who the enemy was, Xiao He would not stand out. Before the first 3 magical beasts could fall, another magical beast landed. Huh! Jiao Liwen felt strange. Normally, Xiao He could quickly deal with the 3 magical beasts if she used her power. But she didn't seem to have that intention. What was she trying to do? Jiao Liwen analyzed the situation. Suddenly, Jiao Liwen noticed Xiao He's movements. The corner of Jiao Liwen's mouth curled. She vaguely understood Xiao He's intentions. But the people of the Duke's mansion were all nervous. They were completely useless now, burdens. Not only could they not help, but Jiao Liwen had to stand here and protect them. In fact, if they weren't burdens, Jiao Liwen and Xiao He could escape on their own. They wouldn't stay here and face an enemy that was almost impossible to defeat. Yes, this towering tree was the kind of enemy that made people despair. Chapter 3053. This kind of battle really is extraordinary. Fane chuckled as he hid to the side. He was quite skilled, and could just barely move. However, he could only use 20 to 30% of his abilities. It would be a stretch to say that he could protect himself. At most, he could only dodge a bit at the edges. However, Xiao He's power had truly exceeded his expectations. He had always known that Xiao He was very strong. He hadn't expected her to be this strong, ridiculously strong. Fane retreated a few more steps. Xiao He and the magical beast seemed to be a bit closer to him. Fane retreated a few more steps. No, she had purposely drawn the battle to his side. Damn it, this woman. Miss Wang, if you drag me into battle again, I will drag everyone down with me. Fane warned. Xiao He turned her head and glanced at Fane, a mocking smile appearing on her lips. Damn it! Did this woman see through me? Fane naturally didn't want to die. He had dreamed of receiving a god's blessing. He didn't want to die here at all. But at this moment, Fane suddenly felt a force coming at him from behind. Fane abruptly turned his head. Nothing. Bang. Nothing at all. No, it was only because he couldn't see anything. Fane's back was sent flying by Yuan Wu. He crashed headfirst into the large black tree. Unknowingly, Fane had been forced to move due to Xiao He's intentional or unintentional movements. He was now quite far from the people of the Duke's mansion, and too close to the large black tree. Oh no! Fane hurriedly cast a barrier on himself. These things on his body couldn't clash intensely. As long as one of them leaked out, it would likely cause a chain reaction. While in midair, Fane saw Carrie point at him and make a shooting motion. With a cracking sound, Fane's barrier broke. His body crashed into the trunk of the large black tree. In that instant, the bottles and jars on his body shattered. These bottles and jars were filled with extremely dangerous magic potions, or terrifying magic. When they collided with each other, a terrifying chaotic magic was produced. When they collided, they didn't cancel each other out, but instead created something even more terrifying. A multicolored sphere instantly engulfed Fane. At the same time, the sphere crashed into the trunk of the large black tree. A circular hole was blasted through the main tree trunk. Black blood oozed from the hole in the tree. Clearly, Xiaohe and Carrie's cooperation had worked. Everyone in the Duke's mansion looked at Xiaohe and Carrie in disbelief. They were actually able to turn the tables in such an extremely disadvantageous situation. Not only did they eliminate the traitors, but they also helped them get rid of the threat of the traitors. He even schemed against a large black tree. This was simply an inconceivable reversal. Everyone in the Duke's mansion admired Xiaohe and Carrie from the bottom of their hearts. Fortunately, they were on their side. It was a hopeless thing to be enemies with them, although the overall situation did not improve much. However, the people of the Duke's mansion were filled with confidence for the future. He could win. If it was them, they would definitely win. But at this time, even more magical beasts fell from the treetops. At the same time, Xiaohe suddenly showed her prowess and instantly killed the 4 demonic beasts that were attacking her. The dark energy of the magical beast was absorbed by Xiaohe again. Xiaohe's aura became stronger again. Xiaohe. Jialiwen looked at Xiaohe worriedly. I know what I'm doing, Xiaohe replied. Seeing the attacking magical beasts, Xiaohe's movements became even faster. Every movement she made exuded a cryptic darkness. 1, 2, 3, for one after another, the dark magical beasts fell in front of Xiaohe. Xiaohe was almost swallowed by the darkness. After dealing with more than 30 magical beasts, Xiaohe began to pant. Her strength had increased, but her stamina could not be restored. She was very tired, but she knew that now was not the time for her to rest. Jialiwen was about to step forward to help Xiaohe, but she turned around and looked at the people of the Duke's mansion. Codelis looked at Jialiwen with a solemn gaze. Miss Jialiwen, we can take care of ourselves. Although we cannot share your burden, at least we do not wish to become your burden. Jialiwen thought for a moment then nodded. Be careful. Go behind that magical beast's corpse. Although it is dead, its body is still extremely resistant. It can help you block most of the shockwaves. Jialiwen walked forward step by step. Yuwu, I need more power. I've accumulated a lot of power these days. You can have as much as you want. Don't brag. You don't even dare to fart before that bastard. Don't call that bastard. He is your master. I've never admitted it. Jialiwen was not stupid. Perhaps her reaction was a little slow, but it did not mean that she could not understand. Those actions seemed to be torturing her, but they were actually making her grow. She did not understand why Chen Zhao had chosen her. But when Chen Zhao was training her, he didn't let her really suffer irreparable damage. He had been silently protecting her. Don't explode. Yuwu rammed into Jialiwen's back, causing her to stumble forward. Yuwu had already merged into Jialiwen's body. Every time Yuwu devoured a magical beast or evil spirit, he would accumulate magic power. If he devoured the same kind from the beast's deal, he would recover some of his power. Over the past few days, he had devoured more than 10 of his kind. As for magical beasts and evil spirits, he had devoured countless more. Jialiwen's growth was also worthy of celebration. Every time she became stronger, she could bear more of his power. At the same time, she could unleash more of his power. Of course, even though Jialiwen was very strong now, she still could not completely bear Yuwu's power. Yuwu still needed to control the power he sent to Jialiwen. Jialiwen thought of the power she had felt when she had merged with Yuwu, but this time, it was even more intense. She also understood the coldness of this power. Green silk. Jialiwen shot out 5 green magic threads from her fingers and touched a dark magical beast. The dark magical beast immediately attacked Jialiwen. Demon seal. Jialiwen's spell followed the green magic threads. The dark magical beast was sent flying, as if it had been hit by a hammer. Come here. Jialiwen retracted her magic threads. The dark magical beast's soul was extracted and turned into her puppet. Go. So strong. Not only is Miss Wang strong, but Miss Jialiwen is also strong. Everyone's eyes were filled with stars. Chapter 3054. 5 strands of magic power shot out of Carrie's left hand, instantly killing a magical beast. Then, she extracted the beast's soul and controlled it to fight for her. Of course, it looked easy, but in reality, each of Carrie's attacks used 10 times her previous magic power. Also, using the magic power strands to control the beast's soul was very strenuous. But she had to admit that the power Carrie displayed was beyond her level. Not just her, Xiaohe was also beyond her level. Xiaohe glanced at Carrie. Carrie, leave this to me. Don't accept too much of Yu Wu's power. Xiaohe knew the relationship between Carrie and Yu Wu. Carrie could borrow power from Yu Wu, although she and Yu Wu had a master-servant relationship. But they were still two individuals. Yu Wu's power would place a great burden on Carrie. Carrie had once used this power that surpassed her own level. Xiaohe remembered it clearly. Aren't you the same? Carrie said. She did not know what Xiaohe's family secret technique represented, but Xiaohe had never used it before. This meant that this family secret technique definitely had some restrictions. Or perhaps there was a price to pay. So the more powerful Xiaohe appeared, the more worried Carrie became. At this moment, the magical beasts hanging on the tree began to shrivel and shrink. The black tree began to absorb the magical beast's life essence. The ground began to shake violently. Slowly, the black tree began to shrink. It began to transform into a human form. When he completely turned into a human, everyone was a little distracted. This was the appearance of a young girl. She was completely naked and covered in wounds. She was also bound by chains. The girl looked at them with tears in her eyes. But at this moment, Xiaohe made a grabbing motion towards the girl transformed from the black tree. A red flying claw shot towards the girl. The girl raised her arm, which suddenly transformed into a tree root to scatter Xiaohe's attack. Don't use this appearance to deceive us. Grandmother liquid demons can transform into anything. So this girl form is not your true form. Only those chains on your body are real. Everything else is fake. And this girl form will only make you die faster, Xiaohe said calmly. A film of this level was meaningless to Xiaohe and Carrie. Many of the enemies they had faced would transform into pitiful or cute things to gain sympathy. In the beginning, they had indeed suffered greatly, but gradually, they knew how to face such a situation. They had seen many of Grandmother Liquid Monster's transformation techniques. Xiaohe, you should have let her stay like this for a while. She might think we've been tricked, Carrie complained. Everyone in the Duke's mansion fell silent and felt a little awkward. They had indeed been deceived by the girl's appearance. Other than sighing at Xiaohe and Carrie's calmness and wisdom, they also felt extremely guilty and remorseful. If you were not careful, you would not be able to penetrate it. If one accidentally passed through them, they would very likely cut off a limb. The people of the Duke's mansion were dumbfounded. What kind of battle was this? It was even more exciting than the climax of a battle in a movie. Just then, the girl's body began to turn black. Her skin seemed to turn into obsidian. The girl waved her hand, and the strands of magic power were torn apart. The girl revealed a pleased expression. Looks like your ultimate move isn't working. Jia Liwen also smiled. You're mistaken. This isn't an ultimate move. It's a normal move with no cooldown. As she spoke, Jia Liwen used the same trick again, covering herself with even more strands of magic power. The girl frowned and waved her black arms again, tearing apart the strands. No matter how many come, it's useless. Jia Liwen ignored the girl and used the same move a third time. The girl didn't change. She tore off as many strands as Jia Liwen used. I told you it's useless. You're wasting magic power. As soon as the girl finished speaking, countless strands of magic power extended from her arms. The strands stretched out her arms. Sorry, I didn't hear what you just said. Jia Liwen smiled as if her plan had succeeded. Chapter 3055. Codelis, how did Miss Carrie do it? Codladlos glanced at Carrie, then at the young girl. After pondering for a while, he said, the threads condensed from magic power seem to have been torn apart by that fellow. But in reality, they are made of magic power. Even if they are torn apart, they won't disappear easily. It should be the magic power that remains in that fellow's arms. Miss Carrie has been using the same move all this time, allowing her to be contaminated with enough magic power. Then, she will use her trump card. The magic power will be drawn by Miss Carrie in an instant, forming new threads. That fellow may be able to tear apart dozens, or even hundreds of threads, but she has a limit. Codelus had only understood Carrie's arrangements and trump card after analyzing the situation. However, Carrie had thought about it in the midst of battle and made her decision in an instant. In Codelus' eyes, Carrie was a master strategist. If only she was a member of the Duke's mansion, she could lead us to become the greatest supernatural organization in the world, Codelus sighed. Xiaohe had also prepared her ultimate move, the red blades in her palms becoming sharper. Whoosh, Xiaohe suddenly dashed forward. Slash. Xiaohe's blades landed on the girl's shoulders and slashed downwards. From the left shoulder to the right abdomen, the girl's upper body slowly slid down with a shocked expression. Black blood gushed out from the lower half of her body. Did she win? Did she win? What an epic victory. Everyone in the Duke's mansion was generous with their praise. However, Carrie and Xiaohe did not look happy at all. They knew that they were not facing an ordinary enemy. With their strength, they could barely fight against a calamity-grade enemy. Just fighting meant that they could barely survive, not win. However, the enemy in front of them was not a calamity-grade enemy. She was an existence even more terrifying than a calamity-grade enemy. How could they be defeated so easily? Moreover, they were killed. Hence, the two did not feel any joy of victory. Slowly, the lower half of the girl's body began to change shape. How is this possible? Her head was cut off, but she still didn't die. Damn it, how can we kill this monster? After changing its form, the mother liquid demon turned into a combination of a human and a snake. Her back was covered with black tree roots, and her face still resembled that of the young girl from before. The grandmother liquid monster looked down at Zhao Liwen and Xiaohe. Hehe, are you disappointed? Xiaohe and Carrie were silent. Disappointed? Of course he was disappointed. But this result was also expected. They were already mentally prepared for this. If this guy was really that easy to deal with, there was no need for them to flip the table and unleash their ultimate move. All of you worked so hard just to cut off one of my branches. But in the middle of the two halves, the black liquid immediately began to connect. It seemed that the attack in half could not kill it. The Zamadeo in Xiaohe's hand turned into a mace. Xiaohe used the mace like a storm to beat the grandmother liquid demon. In an instant, flesh and blood flew everywhere. But after the flesh and blood left the body, it turned into tree bark and wood chips. The mace in Xiaohe's hand changed again, turning into two red tasseled spears. When the spear tip touched the grandmother liquid demon's body, a small explosion occurred. Xiaohe was going all out now. She knew that these attacks were not fatal to the grandmother liquid demon, but she needed to use all her strength to make the grandmother liquid demon busy, repairing its body, and unable to continue attacking. Kodals and the others hurriedly dragged Zhao Liwen back into the crowd. Fick, heal Miss Zhao Liwen. But before Fick could heal Zhao Liwen, her body began to rapidly heal. Fick, it's not me, it's Miss Zhao Liwen's body. Her magic power seems to have increased again. Xiaohe's cheeks were covered with bulging veins and her eyes were crimson. Her attacks were like quicksilver spilling onto the ground. It was indeed a huge problem for the grandmother liquid demon. But everyone knew that if Xiaohe's attacks could not harm the grandmother liquid demon, then her attacks would be meaningless. Chapter 3056. Suddenly, a thorn shot out from the grandmother liquid demon's body, piercing through Xiaohe, who was fully focused on the attack. The huge impact sent Xiaohe to the stone wall. Xiaohe spat out a mouthful of blood, but the next moment, Xiaohe cut off the connecting thorn and stood up again. At this moment, Xiaohe was already covered in blood, but she didn't hesitate. This made everyone in the Duke's mansion feel ashamed. They couldn't even fight. They couldn't even help a little. The weapon in Xiaohe's hand changed again. This time it became a red chain whip. The red gas was like a burning flame. The chain whip in Xiaohe's hand was ever-changing. Xiaohe also danced with the wind like she was dancing. The scene was so beautiful, but everyone in the Duke's mansion knew how terrifying Xiaohe's beautiful dance was. Occasionally, the whip would fall on the stone wall, and a large part of the stone wall would crack. If it was on a person or a spiritual body, it could probably kill a lot of them with one blow. But the attack on the grandmother liquid demon was much less effective. But the specialty of the chain whip was not attack power. It was attack frequency. If compared to the previous weapons, it was much more powerful. The power of a single attack might be a little weaker. However, the number of attacks within 10 seconds was something that other weapons couldn't compare to. Xiaohe was trying her best to suppress the self-healing of the grandmother liquid demon. But the self-healing speed was still faster than the damage caused by Xiaohe. At this time, the grandmother liquid demon had grown a new head. Maybe for the grandmother liquid demon, the head was not a necessity. Maybe it just grew a head to talk. Or to mock Xiaohe. All your efforts are just making yourself more tired, and making your meat more delicious, the grandmother liquid demon said mockingly. At this moment, the grandmother liquid demon looked at the entrance. More snacks. As soon as the voice fell, many people came in from the entrance. Xiaohe noticed that these people were wearing the same uniform of the new era. The grandmother liquid demon immediately attacked these people. Dozens of tree thorns shot out and pulled back dozens of people. Everyone in the Duke's mansion gasped. They saw how Xiaohe avoided these tree thorns and how she cut them. Although it was thrilling, Xiaohe had only been hit once throughout the journey. They still felt that there were just a lot of tree thorns. But now that he saw this scene, he realized how naive he was. Almost all of the tree thorns hit their target. The Mother Liquid monster's first wave of attack against New Era ended with a 100% hit rate. However, a few dozen people was only a small portion of the New Era. Xiaohe slowed down and carefully withdrew from the center of the battlefield. She did not want to be taken advantage of by the people of the New Era. Grandmother Liquid Demon couldn't move. So far, her attacks had been rather crude, and she hadn't used any spells. But the New Era's people didn't attack immediately. Those people were picking up the body parts of the maternal liquid demon that Xiaohe and Jialiwen had killed. At the very back of the crowd was a container. The container was not small, and could probably hold a person. The outer shell was made of metal, and there were many cryptic symbols engraved on it. After they picked up the tissues, they squeezed out the blood from the tissues, and dripped it onto the container. Xiaohe's face changed. Was this maternal liquid demon the ancient special bloodline? What they actually wanted was the blood of the maternal liquid demon. Damn it, why didn't she think of this? At this time, Jialiwen had recovered a little and stood up again. She also noticed the situation of the New Era. Jialiwen's eyes kept wandering around the New Era crowd. She was searching. He was looking for Bjorn. At this time, a man in a red robe with drawings on his face waved his hand. A person was tied to a stretcher and pushed in. When Jialiwen and Xiaohe saw that person, their faces changed. Because that person was none other than Bayan. It was the purpose of their trip. Bayan, Jialiwen and Xiaohe immediately moved. But the people of the New Era had been paying attention to Xiaohe and Jialiwen. From all the information they had obtained, they already knew how terrifying Xiaohe and Jialiwen were. Moreover, they had come here once before. That time, they brought no fewer people than this time. But not even a hair of the maternal liquid demon was harmed. Instead, they lost 90% of their people, and fled the ruins in a sorry state. But this time, Xiaohe and Jialiwen could actually barely suppress the maternal liquid demon. Moreover, they had caused some damage to his body. This was enough to prove how terrifying Xiaohe and Jialiwen were. Thus, after they entered the ruins, they had been on guard against the two of them. As expected, the two of them directly charged over. The New Era members in the front row immediately got into formation and aimed their guns at Xiaohe and Jialiwen. Fuck, Jialiwen cursed. She could only temporarily retreat and activate her shield. Boom 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 da-da-da. Without any hesitation they fired. Xiaohe and Jialiwen couldn't withstand so many guns. Miss Wang, Miss Jialiwen, come quickly. The people of the Duke's mansion also activated their shields. They had many people, and their magic shields supported each other. The effect was much better than Xiaohe and Jialiwen's. The New Era's formation didn't stop, but their plan didn't stop either. In the crowd, Bayan was pushed in front of the container. Then 2 syringes pierced his main artery. Jialiwen had the urge to rush out of the shield, but Xiaohe held her back tightly. Bayan also looked in Jialiwen's direction. They were drawing his blood. At this moment, Jialiwen and Xiaohe suddenly understood. Why did they keep bringing Bayan along and give him a high position? because he was also a part of the resurrection plan. They wanted his bloodline. The light in Bayan's eyes grew dimmer and dimmer. Jiao Liwen's face was ashen. The moment the enemy's guns stopped, Jiao Liwen charged out. Xiao He followed closely behind. At this moment, Jiao Liwen's body and face were covered in Dao patterns. She had completely accepted the power that came from Yuan Wu. More accurately, she had forced Yuan Wu to transfer all of his power to her. Jiao Liwen swept out like a gale. 2 fusion bodies charged out. But in just a single exchange, the 2 fusion bodies were destroyed by Jiao Liwen. Jiao Liwen didn't stop. She slapped her palms several meters away, and a green light shot out. It directly hit the container. Xiao He charged in front of Bayan and tore the rope binding him. She grabbed him and retreated. Jiao Liwen immediately took his place and faced the dozen new era members, who were about to raise their guns again. Jiao Liwen's palms suddenly shot out dozens of magic power threads. In an instant, the dozen new era members were entangled by the magic power threads. Jiao Liwen pulled forcefully. The dozen people fell to the ground with a thud. Their souls had already left their bodies. Chapter 3057. But more people came to fill in the gaps. They didn't care about the deaths of their companions. It was as if the ones who died were unrelated. And those who filled in the gaps were also unafraid of death. They were the true protectors of the evil cultists. Of course, although their faith was firm, it wasn't a good thing. Carrie clenched her teeth. The souls of these evil cultists were even harder to control than the souls of magical beasts. Their depravity had seeped deep into their bones. If you don't want to cooperate, then disappear forever. Carrie instantly controlled the dozen souls to explode on the spot. Creak! At this time, the container surrounded by the evil cultists suddenly emitted a sharp sound. It sounded like a rusty screw being unscrewed. The runes engraved on the container evaporated one by one. Then the container was pushed away. A woman stood up. She was beautiful, but her skin was completely gray, and she looked lifeless. The woman's expression was also very unnatural. She opened her mouth, tilted her head, and twisted her neck constantly. Gradually, another arm grew out of the woman's back. It was bigger than half of her body. Hungry, the woman uttered a single word. Then the arm grabbed the evil cultist in front of her. Ah! Sect leader, save me, save me. The cultist did not seem to be resolute enough to sacrifice himself for the god he worshipped. But their god clearly didn't care about their faith. What she cared about was blood. The arm behind the woman grabbed the evil cultist and lifted him above her head. Ah! The evil cultist screamed. Then blood was squeezed out of his body. Blood dripped onto the woman's head. The woman opened her mouth and gulped down the blood. Everyone present felt a little nauseous. They had all seen some things that ate people, but they had never seen anyone eat people in this way. She casually threw away the corpse that had been drained of blood, but she had just eaten his blood, so she showed a look of disgust. The woman looked around. Then her gaze fell on the maternal liquid demon. The demon cursed inwardly. This woman gave him a very, very bad feeling. But he couldn't escape. As soon as he took a step back, the chains bound him. The woman's arm grew larger and longer, grabbing at the demon. The demon immediately transformed into his true form. However, when he was halfway to his original form, the huge hand had seized him. Let go! Grandmother Liquid Demon roared. However, that woman was clearly not the type to listen to orders. Bung! The chains on the Mother Liquid Demon's body broke one by one. That woman actually destroyed the seal of the maternal liquid monster. However, the Mother Liquid Demon broke free from the shackles of the seal. But he couldn't get rid of that woman's hand. This time, the woman didn't drain the Mother Liquid Demon dry. A mouth appeared on her palm, and she began to stuff the Mother Liquid Demon into it. Chapter 3058. By now, the resurrected god had mostly killed the cultists. Seeing the person at the entrance, he charged toward him without hesitation. Then, the person stretched out a finger and flicked the forehead of the resurrected god. Bang! Instantly, the resurrected god was sent flying. His body smashed into the stone wall. The patio was hundreds of meters tall and had a diameter of hundreds of meters. Half of the stone wall was covered in cracks. Everyone widened their eyes and stared at the person in shock. The person walked up to Xiaohe and Carrie. Everyone in the Duke's residence was pale with fright. They'd seen how terrifying the resurrected god was. He could kill the grandmother liquid demon instantly. But the person had only used one finger. One finger. Did Xiaohe and Carrie have a chance of winning against this person? Impossible. Didn't he see that the two of them were too scared to move? The person raised his hand and slapped Xiaohe's head. Xiaohe fell to the ground. Miss Wang. Everyone in the Duke's residence was about to charge over. The person turned his head and glanced at them. Scram. Pooh. More than 30 people spat out blood at the same time, and lay on the ground. Holding the contract, Chen Zhao placed it in front of Carrie. See if there's a problem. If there's no problem, sign it. Mr. Chen, we're only a few hours late. And this contract seems even worse than what we agreed on. Carrie didn't want to sign, because the contract stated that she had to listen to any of Chen Zhao's orders for 10 years. She had to kill 10 disaster-level magical beasts or evil spirits, or even a god-level magical beast for Chen Zhao. She didn't even need to look at the extra conditions. It was impossible. Now, she had to see if she could bargain with Chen Zhao. Moreover, Chen Zhao was fiercer than she'd imagined. The resurrected god was sent flying with a flick of Chen Zhao's finger. Forget it. Since you don't want to sign it, I won't force you. Chen Zhao burned the contract in his hand. Then he replaced it with another contract. Carrie thought that Chen Zhao had changed his mind. But when she looked at the contract, it was 10 times more stringent than the previous one. Mr. Chen, did you take the wrong one? That's right, Chen Zhao said indifferently. He glanced at Bjorn on the ground. This guy is your adoptive father? He looks like he's about to die. I should be the only one who can save him. But it doesn't matter. You guys are going to feed that guy soon anyway. At this time, the resurrected god had regained his vitality. But this time, he didn't attack immediately. Clearly, he was wary of Chen Zhao's power. Sign this contract, and all of you will be able to leave safely. If you don't, I can watch you all get eaten by him. Xiaohe stood up again. She was already used to Chen Zhao hitting her just now. It wasn't Chen Zhao's first time hitting her anyway. Instead of refining it, it would directly fuse into one's own essence qi and dermic powers. It was more or less a supernatural version of the Dark North divine art. If one absorbed too much, the various dermic powers would clash with each other, causing chaos in one's mind and dermic powers. For example, just now, Xiaohe had used spiritual qi to extract essence qi from dark demonic beasts several times to refine herself. Her power had increased by leaps and bounds in a short time. But that was basically Xiaohe's upper limit. Of course, it wouldn't be a problem to swallow more. But then, Xiaohe would probably rebel on the spot. Everyone in the Duke's mansion watched as the arrogant god was dragged before Chen Zhao and stepped on. They felt their scalps go numb. Xiaohe didn't dare to extract this thing's essence qi and blood. Regardless of whether he was a god or not, he definitely exceeded her limit. Whatever Huawu come out. He's your midnight snack. Huawu left Carrie's body, but he didn't have the strength to eat a god. He was just as worried as Xiaohe that he would be stuffed to death. This thing could really stuff him to death. Maybe one drop of blood would do. After all, there was a huge difference in power. One drop of blood was already the limit. Looks like you won't be able to enjoy it. Whatever, I'll take it back and make it into medicinal wine. Everyone was speechless. In their eyes, it was something that could be used to make medicinal wine. In Chen Zhao's eyes, it was something to make medicinal wine. Chapter 3059. Chen Zhao picked up Bjorn and poured a perfect demonic crystal potion into his mouth. Carrie walked over to the Duke's mansion and explained the situation to them. Everyone in the Duke's mansion was in disbelief. That guy was Xiaohe and Carrie's teacher? Wasn't that too unbelievable? No, it was the opposite. That was more reasonable. If there wasn't such a terrifying teacher, how could he have taught Carrie and Xiaohe to be so powerful? Now, everyone in the Duke's mansion was a bit jealous. In front of their teacher, the resurrected god was as weak as a child. He was just a bit stricter. When he'd arrived, he'd slapped Xiaohe to the ground. He must have felt that Xiaohe and Carrie didn't perform well enough. But they felt that Xiaohe and Carrie had already performed very well. But with such a teacher, It was understandable that they were stricter. Just then Carrie took out a finger. Chun Zhao had broken it off from the resurrected god. "This is for you." Everyone in the Duke's mansion was confused. "Miss Carrie, what? What are you going to do with this? Don't tell me you want us to use it to create those fusion monsters? What are you thinking? This is a very good raw material for magic tools. If you find a powerful alchemist and use this as the basic material, you can create powerful magic tools. Of course, there won't be many of them, but they're very valuable. Xiaohe and I are leaving. We might not have the chance to meet again, so consider this a gift from us." Everyone in the Duke's mansion was dazed. They also realized how precious this god's finger was. But when they remembered that Carrie and Xiaohe were about to leave, they couldn't be happy anymore. However, they could understand it. After all, their teacher was so powerful. Xiaohe and Carrie, on the other hand, had clearly not reached the heights their teacher had hoped for. So, it was natural that they would be taken away to continue cultivating. Everyone in the Duke's mansion followed Chun Zhao out of the relic. "I'm leaving now. You two better not make me come to you again. I'll give you 24 hours. With that, Chun Zhao flew into the air. It was the first time the Duke's mansion had seen someone fly. Everyone's eyes were filled with longing. They were filled with envy and jealousy. In their eyes, Xiaohe and Zhao Liwen were experts among experts. As for their teacher who could fly, he was probably an expert among experts. Of course, they didn't know what the levels were, or rather, they weren't very clear about it. Just being able to fly was already shocking enough. How could Carrie and Xiaohe dare to delay? In just a few hours, Chun Zhao had Carrie sign a 100-year contract. If it went any further, Chun Zhao might make them slaves for the rest of their lives. Chun Zhao could really do something like that. As for Bayan, Xiaohe and Carrie had asked the Duke's mansion to help him get a proper identity in Switzerland. At the same time, they had also left him some money, enough for him to start a small business. The familiar air. What a familiar scenery. Xiaohe and Zhao Liwen stood at the exit of the airport. Xiaohe held a pot of black flowers in her arms. It had been more than 10 days. Carrie and Xiaohe did not know what they were feeling right now. Do you miss the city? Just a little. But more than that, it was fear. After all, there was someone in this city that they feared. That was someone who could kill God. Maybe not a real God, but it was still enough to make their hair stand on end. The grandmother liquid demon was following them now. After being glared at by Chun Zhao yesterday, the granny demon was completely terrified. It was really too scary. Not to mention that she only had 10% of her cultivation left. Even if she was at 100%, she would probably be smashed to pieces by Chun Zhao with one slap. So, she decided to join the enemy and expressed that she was willing to be Xiaohe and Carrie's follower and follow them everywhere. "Hey Mr. Chin, we're back in LA. Go home by yourself. There's a new training plan starting at night," Chun Zhao said briefly and hung up. In fact, before Carrie and Xiaohe entered the ruins yesterday, Chun Zhao had already found them through the contract. After all, one of them had been taken care of by West and the other by Li Qing. Nothing could happen to either of them. So Chun Zhao could only control the situation early. He would act when the two of them really couldn't handle it. Without a doubt, the resurrected god was too much for them now. Even if it wasn't a real god, and didn't even have 10% of God's power. Still, it wasn't something they could deal with. Even the grandmother liquid demon's body was too much for them. But Carrie and Xiaohe's performance was really good. Chun Zhao didn't expect them to be able to fight the grandmother liquid demon so well in the early stages. After returning home, the two rested for a bit. When the sky darkened, their biological clocks woke them up automatically. Glancing at the time, they knew it was almost time. They hurried to fill their stomachs. Chun Zhao knocked on the door. After entering, he glanced at the food on the table. "I'll give you 5 minutes to eat your fill, and then get in the car." They were already used to Chun Zhao's simple and direct communication method. After sweeping away the food on the table, they hurried into Chun Zhao's car. "Mr. Chun, this is the way to the Supernatural Organization's headquarters, right?" Xiaohe had been there before. Carrie hadn't. But she knew that Chun Zhao was the president of the Supernatural Organization. After all, she'd thrown herself into the psionic team's embrace with her head. Chen Zhao had almost slapped her to death. But after these days of growth, her horizons and experience had improved a lot. She felt that her initial choice had been extremely stupid. After arriving at the headquarters, Chen Zhao brought Carrie and Xiao He into the Tower of Trials. Press your palms on the door, both of you. Your mission is to stay inside for 10 minutes. The two stared at the tall tower before them. What was this tower? Was there something inside? Was there some evil spirit or magical beast locked inside? Before they could figure it out, they were suddenly teleported into the Tower of Trials. Chen Zhao stood before the tower and counted the time on his stopwatch. In less than 5 minutes, 2 white lights flashed before him, and the two fell to the ground. The two were still immersed in the fear of death. I'm not dead? Carrie asked. What's going on? Xiao He's expression was also one of bewilderment. Less than 10 minutes. How disappointing. Chen Zhao shook his head. Chapter 3060. Both of their faces were pale. At that moment, they thought that they were really going to die in there. Unexpectedly, they were back here in the blink of an eye. Mr. Chen, what exactly happened just now? You can think of the experience as a high-level illusion. In fact, everything in the Tower of Trials was real. It wasn't much different from the trial grounds that Chen Zhao had created. However, there was still a fundamental difference between the two. It was a difference in the rules. If the trial grounds that Chen Zhao had created died, they would really die. This was because the trial grounds that Chen Zhao had created relied on the rules of the current world. Everything in the Tower of Trials had different rules. For example, life and death weren't so obvious in the Tower of Trials. The rules were power that even Chen Zhao couldn't fathom right now. For example, Blackie controlled the power of life and death, but even he couldn't not die or revive. In the Tower of Trials, the boundaries between life and death weren't so clear. As the creator of the Tower of Trials, the handsome guy, perhaps he truly controlled life and death. Perhaps he wasn't truly unkillable. However, the method to kill him was definitely not something that Chen Zhao could imagine, because his power was already unimaginable and unbelievable. Can we experience the illusion again? Carrie looked at Chen Zhao expectantly. She and Xiao He obviously knew what the Tower of Trials meant. Next week, Chen Zhao said. You only have 1 chance per week. Both of them were somewhat disappointed. But people who entered the Tower of Trials for the first time all felt the same. Not everyone liked to enter the Tower of Trials. After all, in the Tower of Trials all the senses were real. The pain was real too. However, once a week was a bit long for Xiao He and Jiali Wen. 1/16 of the Supernatural Youth Fighting Tournament had already passed. After the previous round of eliminations, the remaining contestants were basically all outstanding. They were all well-rounded. Disser and Sildia had successfully advanced in the previous round. However, they hadn't teamed up in the previous round. Instead, they competed separately. Therefore, it was very difficult for them. It wasn't an absolute conclusion before the competition. However, it was very likely that they'd be eliminated this round. Through Chen Zhao, Carrie and Xiao He also found out about the competition. Of course, they couldn't participate even if they wanted to. After all, they were already halfway there. And Carrie and Xiao He were already 1 or 2 years older than the age limit of 22. However, they still managed to get tickets through Chen Zhao. The venue was a rented stadium. The stadium was closed externally. When the two arrived at the stadium, there were already many spectators gathered there. Some were eliminated in the early stages, while others were people from the supernatural world. There were almost no ordinary people at the scene. If he hadn't come here, he wouldn't have known that there were so many people in the supernatural world. There were at least 1,000 spectators in the stadium. Although compared to the 10,000 seats, the audience was still relatively sparse. However, this wasn't a normal sports competition. It was a supernatural combat competition. A high platform was erected in the middle of the stadium. Wes was the referee for today's match. The first round of 16. Contestants 1 and 32 can go on stage now. At West's request, the 2 contestants entered the arena. Xiao He, who do you think will win? Carrie looked at the 2 contestants in the arena. Looking at the 2 contestants, Xiao He was silent for a while. Judging from their auras, the one on the left is stronger, while the one on the right seems to practice dark magic. He's more offensive, so the one on the left is stronger in cultivation and has the advantage in attributes. It's hard to say who will win. The two weren't betting. Instead, they were using their own knowledge and judgment to analyze. They would analyze every contestant in each group. After 3 groups, they guessed 2 correctly and 1 incorrectly. Just then, Chen Zhao came and sat beside them. The two immediately became cautious. Before Chen Zhao, they still had that timid and fearful attitude. Chen Zhao didn't care about their attitude. He just watched the competition normally. However, after a while, Chen Zhao found it boring. It couldn't be helped. The level of the competition was too low. It felt like a kindergarten taekwondo competition. That was the concept. What do you think of their skills? Chen Zhao suddenly asked. Carrie and Xiaohe looked at each other. How should they answer? Not bad. It felt like they were lying with their eyes open. Even the two of them could feel that the level of the contestants in the arena was simply too weak. A few of them were almost at the level of the people from the Duke's residence. Some were even worse. It was said that this was the result after 2 or 3 rounds of selection. They really didn't know how messy it was at the beginning. So Chen Zhao definitely didn't ask this question to let them choose something nice. I feel like I can beat them all if I go down alone. Carrie wasn't talking nonsense. This was a judgment she'd made after evaluating the contestants' abilities. But as soon as she said it, she regretted it. She felt that Chen Zhao would cause trouble because of her words. Fine. I won't make things difficult for you. After the competition ends, you and Xiaohe can attack the contestants' carriages. Carrie took a deep breath. Indeed, what she feared had come true. Chen Zhao wouldn't let them have a good life. However, given the level of the people in the arena, if there wasn't a sudden change in style, even double the number wouldn't be a threat to her and Xiaohe. What should we do? Xiaohe asked. You can bring all your equipment. After the competition ends, the contestants will gather and return to the hotel. You can attack them on the way. Other than not killing them, you can do whatever you want. Just as Carrie was about to speak, Xiaohe immediately pulled Carrie back. Xiaohe was afraid that Carrie would stubbornly say that they didn't need equipment. But Chen Zhao thought about it and suddenly changed his mind. No, they just finished the competition. They're definitely not in good condition. You'll have too much of an advantage. Xiaohe and Carrie were speechless. They felt like Chen Zhao was having fun, not testing the contestants. How about we go big? Carrie said. We'll use the New Age Church's operation in Switzerland as the script. What do you think? Give all 16 contestants an identity and play it like a large-scale, real RPG game. As long as each character reaches the goal, they pass the test. Interesting. Chen Zhao chuckled. Any specific ideas? Chapter 3061. Aodilan, there are still 2 days until the next match. Do you want to go out and play? No, I have to train, Aodilan said. The contestants stayed in a suite for 2, Alderman and Manette together. However, their personalities were completely opposite. Manette was casual and good at making friends. Aodilan was more solitary. He didn't interact with anyone other than Manette during the match. Manette usually asked Aodilan to go out and play, but Aodilan always refused. Manette was already used to it. Then I'll go out and play alone. Do you need me to bring you food? No need. Aodilan shook his head. Don't tire yourself out. In that case, goodbye. Manette changed his clothes and went out. Not long after Manette left, Aodilan heard the door open. Why is Manette back so soon? Aodilan frowned. No, it's not Manette's voice. Room service? That's not it either. The organizer had already booked this floor and cancelled all room service. Aodilan immediately stood up and took out his magic tool. Aodilan saw 2 women standing outside the door. Who are you? You are Aodilan. I am. Who are you? We are the organizer. You have a mission. Carrie took out a bag and handed it to Aodilan. What mission? Before the next round begins, we will play a little game. Of course, you can also treat this as the next round of the competition. I don't understand. Aodilan was still cautious and didn't open the bag. Simply put, it's an RPG game. Do you understand? All contestants will receive a character. Your mission and character description are in the bag. You can see for yourself. Carrie said. All right, quickly get into character. We still have to make arrangements for the others. Manet also has one. He has one. Carrie nodded. What's his character? Although we don't forbid you from revealing your character, we don't recommend it either. Revealing your character means you might be targeted, especially when you have a special identity. Aodilan didn't ask anything else. After Carrie and Xiaohe left, Aodilan opened the bag. There were 3 cards inside. There were also a few magic tools. Identity card hero. 1 set of hero equipment set. Justice will prevail. When the battalion you belong to wins, you will receive +5 points. ID card, magic breaker ring. Can temporarily take the magic of the target you destroy as your own. You need to eliminate at least 4 magical characters from the opposing faction. When you complete the identity quest, you will receive +5 points. Identity card monitor, lock of truth. Use chains to bind the target of your suspicion. They will not be able to lie. You need to find at least 1 traitor. When you complete the mission, you will receive +5 points. Furthermore, the traitor has already seen through your role as a supervisor. The traitor possesses methods that can threaten your life. Please treat this with caution. Looks like something I said caught your attention. Is it the 4th identity I mentioned? So you're different from me. You have 3 identities? Or 5 people with different identities? I personally think there are 3 identities. I am. Don't tell me your hidden identity. No matter how much you trust me, don't expose yourself. Otherwise, the game will lose its fun. No matter what, please pass this round. Manet waved his hand and continued. The second is the opposing faction. Originally, I guessed that it would be the other contestants. But after thinking about it, it might not be the other contestants. Because of the number of people, there are currently 16 contestants. Unless the 16 contestants are roughly divided into 2 groups, 16 contestants is too few. An 8-on-8 game is very boring. So I am more inclined to believe that the opposing faction would be someone other than the contestants. Chapter 3062. Just as Manet and Audran were discussing and analyzing the situation, a broadcast suddenly rang out, telling them to gather at the designated location within a limited time. Manet and Audran quickly packed up their things and set off. It would appear that the game was about to begin. If they did not arrive within the limited time, they might be eliminated or have their points deducted. When the 2 of them arrived at the designated location, someone else had already arrived. The designated location was the lake at the center of the forest, where the first trial had started. The remaining participants were no strangers to this place. One after another, the 16 contestants arrived. At that moment, Carrie and Xiaohe arrived as well. Carrie clapped her hands and said, "Everyone come over here." Everyone gathered in front of Carrie and Xiaohe. All of you should understand the rules this time, right? If there is anything you do not understand, you can raise it now. I have a question. Carrie looked at the participant who had raised the question. Do you have a question? All right, you are now eliminated. You still have a question now? Either you have no brains, or you are not serious. Carrie pointed at the participant who had raised the question. The ring on Carrie's finger suddenly flashed with light. The participant was lifted into the air by an invisible force and thrown out of the forest. This scene was not unfamiliar to the participants at all. All right, the small fries are gone. Now, do you have any questions? The remaining 15 participants expressed that they had no questions. What a joke. One person had been eliminated just because of a disagreement. Who would dare to raise a question at a time like this? Since it's a fake RPG plot, there needs to be a main plot. The bad guys want to break the seal of the evil god. And your mission is to stop the evil god's seal from being broken, or to reseal the god after the evil god is broken. After saying that, Carrie took out a map and distributed it to everyone. This is the game map. If you leave the range of the map, you will be directly eliminated. The game will end after one side wins. Xiaohe stepped forward and said, "All right, that's the general introduction of the game. Let me remind you that she has provided a lot of information. You can analyze it. Also, The two of us will be the bosses of this game. Other than the evil gods that have yet to be unsealed, we are the highest level. Do you want to try and defeat us here? Alderman was about to attack when Manitra stopped him and shook his head. It seems like no one is going to make a move. What a pity. The points you get from defeating us will allow you to advance to the next level even if you lose the faction quest, Carrie said regretfully. Alright, the game officially begins. With that, Carrie and Xiaohe turned around and left. Let's go, Manet said. Audran hesitated for a moment before finally following Manette's footsteps. There were also a few people who left in groups of 1 or 2. Of course, there were still a few people left at the scene. Audran followed Manette. Manette, why aren't you attacking? No matter how strong those 2 women are, they shouldn't be able to defeat 16 people. To be precise, 15 people. Also, didn't you see that woman send one person out? The one who was sent out should be eliminated, right? It's a special item that woman has. But if we had attacked, are you sure she wouldn't have used that item to eliminate us? Then why can't we stay here? Isn't it better to move together? Audran asked. It's more dangerous when there are too many people. Although it's an RPG game, this game should also be a werewolf killing game. The traders are like werewolves, so there must be a profit. Isn't it good to have a profit? No, it's very bad. Audran stared at Manet. You aren't a trader, are you? Manet stretched out his hand and revealed a strange-looking bracelet. This is called Ring Sense. It's a prophecy magic item. When activated, it can detect the color of your underwear today. Of course, it also includes all your identity information. You're a prophet. Audran looked at Manet in shock. That's right. But a prophet can't accurately know everyone's identity information. He needs to designate a suspect to perform the prophecy. Other than the target, all the players present can obtain the relevant identity information. The cooldown is 24 hours. In other words, it can only be used once a day. My prophecy magic item is already in cooldown. If we had stayed at the scene, the people present would have formed an alliance and started a werewolf killing in the wild. Other than wasting time, it would also cause chaos because everyone would be suspicious of each other at the start. The traders would deliberately release misleading information or even use words to force the prophet out. Then how do you know I'm not a traitor? Why do you think my ring sense is in cooldown? You've already used it on me? No. Since you've used it on me, doesn't that mean everyone else knows my identity? I used it in the hotel. What? You could use it at that time? This is a small trick. First, confirm the ally. I need a trustworthy partner, not a suspicious team. This is also one of the hidden rules of this game. You can't form a team with more than one person. A team made up of people who don't trust each other will only lead to faster elimination. But when there's danger, it's safer, isn't it? Perhaps, but there'll be more danger. The evil god faction will definitely launch more and stronger attacks. We who are alone will be safer. At least the enemies we meet won't be the enemy's main force. Manet paused and then said, Also, what are the conditions to unlock the evil god's seal? What are the conditions to reseal the evil god? What are the conditions to defeat the evil god? We don't know. But I'm sure that these conditions are hidden among the players. They might be the main targets of the evil god faction. Of course, it could also be a hidden item along the way. We need to explore all of this. Luckily you're here. Otherwise, I really don't know what to do. Maybe I'll be eliminated. There's still too little information. We can't control the progress of the game. So, what we need to do now is explore the game. Sabonis propped up his huge body. Under his body, Orderon and Manet's legs turned to jelly. Don't tell me you want us to fight him? You'll die, right? Mortals, you've trespassed into the forbidden area. Sabonis started, and then forgot what to say. The staff member didn't leave. He was still not far away, waving his hands and looking very anxious. Please wait a moment. Sabonis took out a huge script. At least it was huge for ordinary people. Then he read from the script. Mortals, you've trespassed into the forbidden area of the dragon race. Give me a reason not to kill you. Manet and Orderon were speechless. Manet hesitated for a moment, then stepped forward and cooperated with Sabonis' performance. Your Excellency Dragon, we didn't mean to offend you. We followed the guidance of fate and passed through this place. No matter what, you've already stepped into the forbidden area and disturbed our ancestors' eternal slumber. So you now have two choices. Either you accept our ancestors' test, or you die here and accompany our ancestor for all eternity. May I ask what the test is? Both of their hearts were pounding. Please don't fight me. Even if you only use 1/10 or 1/100th of your strength, we'll still be trampled. We can't win. It's definitely impossible to win. What are your professions? Sabonis asked. I'm a hero. I'm a spellcaster. Both of them reported their professions. Then let's start with you, hero. Sabonis pointed at Orderon with his dragon claw. Sabonis' dragon claw was even bigger than Orderon and Manet. So are you ready? Orderon smiled bitterly. Ready for what? He didn't even know what the test was. In any case, if he were to fight a dragon, he definitely wouldn't be able to win. Even if he was 10 times stronger, he still wouldn't be able to win. Yes, I'm ready. Orderon nodded, although he had the intention to give up struggling. However, Aodilan was still on high alert. Suddenly, a terrifying aura erupted from Sabonis' body. Dragon's might. Orderon almost knelt on the ground. Such a terrifying pressure. He felt as if the entire world was pressing down on him. Even breathing became extremely difficult. Orderon's body was on the verge of collapse, as if he would fall the next moment. But Orderon still held on. His feet seemed to be rooted to the ground, barely maintaining his balance. Suddenly, Orderon's body felt light. All the dragon aura disappeared. Orderon almost fell to the ground. Very good. You've passed the test. Your courage has been recognized by the ancestors. The ancestors are willing to bless you. You can choose one of your hero equipment to receive the blessing of the dragon ancestor. I passed just like that. Orderon was in disbelief, although he had the intention to give up a few times. But when Sabonis said that he passed the test, and even received a reward, Orderon still couldn't believe it. Orderon was still in disbelief. After all, he was facing a real WIRM. What else? Do you want to fight me to pass the test? Although that's what my script says, if you want to fight me to be satisfied, I'll be happy to accompany you. No. I didn't mean that. Orderon hurriedly waved his hand. What do you need me to do to receive the blessing of the dragon ancestor? Just go through the motions. I don't have any special requirements. Anyway, hero's sword, hero's armor, hero's hand and hero's foot. You can just go there and soak it in dragon blood. That'll be the blessing. Orderon smiled bitterly. Although this was a big deal, the details were still very rough. Sabonis looked at Manet. Now it's your turn. Manet smiled bitterly and took a few steps forward. Willpower isn't my strong point. Can I give up? You're a spellcaster. The test is different. Huh. Different? Okay, cast a spell now. Any spell is fine. As long as you can cast it, you pass. Chapter 3064. Manet had thought that he was being taken care of. But just as he was about to use magic, he suddenly felt the spirit of heaven and earth being stirred up. Manet realized that Sabonis was stirring up the spirit of heaven and earth. For most spiritualists, this was a pseudo-magic forbidding field. Trying to cast magic in this environment, it was as troublesome as fetching a glass of water in muddy water. Manet's expression was ugly. He could only lower the level of his spells. But even the most basic elemental fireball was extremely difficult. Manet was also secretly anxious. What should he do? Manet saw the disappointment and mockery in Sabonis' eyes. Suddenly Manet thought of an idea. A very dangerous idea. Absorb the chaotic spirit of heaven and earth into his body. He might be injured before the spell was fully unleashed. Absorb the chaotic spirit of heaven and earth into his body, and then refine it a second time. But Manet had estimated that if he used the lowest level of magic, it would be impossible for him to do so. He would be injured, but he wouldn't die. Manet decided to take the risk. The game had just started. It would be embarrassing if he was eliminated. Of course, there was another more important reason. Manet came from a small family. There were only 2 or 3 kids and pitifully few resources. The so-called small family was actually just 3 households with a dozen people. How scarce were resources? For a low-level magic tool, 3 generations of 3 households had schemed against each other for more than a decade. From his grandfather's generation to his cousins of this generation, all sorts of plots and schemes had been used just to get this magic tool. Manet's family was the one that had failed. And as compensation, he got a spot in the supernatural youth fighting competition. He had thought that this was a useless competition, but after participating in this competition, he realized that his standards were too low. Not to mention the organizers, just the other participants. There were all sorts of magic tools that were much more powerful than the magic tool in his family. As for the organizers, the supernatural organization, their generosity was even more shocking. And Manet got some uncertain information from the grapevine. A few eliminated contestants had joined the supernatural organization. Every time Manet said that he was going out to play, his main purpose wasn't to eat, drink, and have fun, but to find out some information. He confirmed the authenticity of this information. He also found out that one of the siblings was favored by the supernatural organization. Their names were Disser and Sildia. This pair of brother and sister were very weak. At the very least, most of the participants were not weaker than them. But they were favored by the supernatural organization. This meant that the supernatural organization wasn't interested in their power. Come to think of it, it made sense. As long as he joined them, he would definitely be able to obtain resources that far exceeded that of a small family. Therefore, the current level of strength was insignificant. Either they were chosen by the supernatural organization, or they had shown potential to attract the supernatural organization. Either that or they had special skills and abilities. So Manet also wanted to become a member of the supernatural organization. In that case, he didn't just have to display his strength. In fact, the main task was not to display his strength. Instead, he wanted to display his potential and abilities. This was also the reason why he teamed up with Ao Deluan, and not the rest of the team. If there were more people, it would be less conspicuous. In the case of a 2-person team, the individual performance opportunities were highlighted. Moreover, in the case of a large group, there were many times when they couldn't control themselves. That was why Manet didn't want to fall at this moment. The supernatural organization had already displayed a shocking amount of power. The first trial might seem ordinary, but that time, the Watcher was extremely powerful. As for the game this time, it was called a game. But it was an extraordinary game. After all, in this world, a force that could organize and arrange such a realistic RPG game was not a simple force. As for entering the government department, Manet didn't even think about it. Eaglehound sounded like a big name, and seemed to have great power. But in reality, they were the police of the spiritual world. They worked like a cow, received a dog's salary, and faced dangerous situations. So no matter how he thought about it, the supernatural organization was the most suitable for his goal. They had power, and enough capital, and the environment to grow up in. These were all things he dreamed of. Sabonis' eyes lit up. Manet's aura changed. Manet had no secrets in Sabonis' eyes. The difference in power and level. This allowed Sabonis to see through Manet at a glance. Magnet's palm began to glow red, and a small but stable fireball appeared in front of Sabonis. Manet pushed, and the small fireball smashed into Sabonis' face. But this small fireball didn't even burn a single scale. The next moment, Manet spat out blood. His face was much weaker. "Not bad, little guy. You passed the test too," Sabonis said. Sabonis said, "I think highly of you. I see wisdom in you. Now you can also receive the same reward." Sabonis paused and said, "At the same time, you will also receive a piece of information. Head to Death Canyon. There's a witch cursed by death there. She was an adventurer from 1,000 years ago. She and her teammates defeated the evil god. But she was also cursed by the evil god. She has been looking for a new generation of adventurers who can inherit her power. Maybe you are the people she is looking for." Respected dragon, can you tell us who are the people who want to break the evil god's seal? It's... Hey, Sir Sabonis, you can't say that. The staff beside him quickly stopped him. All right. Sabonis shrugged. This is also part of the game. You can decipher it yourself. Actually, I don't like my current character. Boss should have arranged another identity for me, like the final boss or something. At least let me be a battle type. It's rare for me to come out to play, but he made me stay here. Alright. Open the magic map now. The dragon's necropolis is already marked on the map. In the bottom right corner of the necropolis is Death Canyon. Sabonis looked at the staff again. I didn't break the game, did I? In principle, you can't say it. They have to explore it themselves, but forget it. The staff was helpless too. He had already said it. What else could he do? After enhancing their equipment, Manet and Orderon hurried to Death Canyon. Not long after they left the necropolis, they saw a battle ahead. Moreover, after a few consecutive matches, everyone knew each other well. Honorable Madam, we know our own strength. We are no match for you. Manet and Audron knew that this female spirit was also an actor. Moreover, judging from the strength she had displayed just now, it was impossible for her to escape. It was definitely not to be underestimated. They didn't even see her attack, but she'd already suppressed the 7. The strength of the 2 of them was not necessarily stronger than that of the 7 opponents. Therefore, if they were to fight, they would definitely not be able to defeat this spirit body. The difference was too obvious. They had no chance of winning. I won't attack you directly, nor will I use defensive skills. As long as you can use physical or magical attacks to break through my defense, you pass the test. The time limit is 10 minutes. If you succeed, you'll obtain a powerful and loyal spirit servant. This spirit servant can help you fight, and also provide you with unexpected information. What if you fail? One of you will be sacrificed to me just like that guy. Pamela pointed at the unlucky guy she had frozen not far away. They'd seen Pamela's test from the side. Manet was a bit hesitant. Pamela had said it lightly. She didn't use offensive or defensive skills. She just stood there and let them attack. As long as any of their attacks could touch Pamela, they would pass. But was it really that easy? Manet was about to refuse, but Orderon said loudly, "Okay, we accept." "Oh wait. Orderon, you're too impulsive," Manet grumbled. To be honest, he didn't want to accept this test. It might be more difficult than Sabonis' test in the dragon's tomb. "It's okay," Orderon said. "If you fail, I'll be the sacrifice." "Then are you ready?" Pamela asked. "Wait, let's pull away first." Manet hurriedly pulled Orderon and ran. "No." Orderon shook off Manet's hand. "Manet, you know I'm an enhancer. It's not good for me to run too far. Didn't you see what happened to those people? If you go near that lady, you'll probably be frozen into ice." "I'm not afraid." Manet smiled bitterly. It wasn't a matter of whether he was afraid or not. Forget it. Manet ran 20 meters away by himself. On the other hand, Audron stood about 10 meters away. Suddenly, a terrifying cold current exploded from Pamela's body again. Manet stood 20 meters away, even though he could feel the cold air blowing against his face. He also felt the cold current, but it didn't affect him much. As for Audron, who was standing about 10 meters away, he was having a hard time moving. Manet was shocked. Just now, he had sensed Pamela's power, but didn't think much of it. But now that he was facing her, he realized it wasn't like that at all. This spirit wasn't any weaker than Sabonis. The cold current had a faintly discernible and terrifying aura. It all meant that she wasn't an ordinary spirit. Standing in front, Orderon felt it even more strongly. "Manet, stand behind me." Manet immediately understood Orderon's intention. He wasn't stupid. He actually had such an idea. Orderon wanted to block the cold current himself and let Manet attack. Therefore, it had already been reserved by Gaia and an elite. So now they had the honor of being the audience. "Captain Gaia, those people over there seem to have quite a bit of strength. At the very least, they are not inferior to these two," Nina said. "No, their brains aren't good." Gaia shook his head. "Not only do they have no special characteristics, they don't know how to cooperate. In the end, they even forcefully sacrifice one person. If one of them didn't vote, I could have brought that person into the supernatural organization, but none of them refused to vote. These people will definitely not enter the supernatural organization." That wasn't teamwork. That was betrayal. No one would like such people, no matter how strong or talented they were. The supernatural organization wouldn't want them. And no team would want people who would sacrifice one person for everyone's safety in times of danger. That man, it isn't bad too. Reiko, I think he's suitable for your team. Don't ask me, Nagasaka Reiko said. I can't make the decision without the captain. Nagasaka Reiko was in Hallie's team. Because Hallie's had a performance mission, Nagasaka Reiko was in charge of supervising the selection of reserve members. Every team would either have their captain or their team members here. It was mainly to select reserve members for each team. He's strong and smart, an elite said. He can calmly analyze the situation in a situation like this and react calmly. He's above average, but his perception is weak. Didn't he notice that Pamela's power has weakened? He can walk forward a few meters and close the distance between him and Pamela. His magic should be from a small family, Jalanash said. It's not easy for him to reach this level. Do you expect him to learn anything else? Also, the smaller families basically give up on perceptual spells. They focus more on offensive spells, Jalanash said. That Manit also used elemental magic, and he knew all 4 elements. He was on the same path as Jalanash. But the difference in power between the two was like heaven and earth. Jalanash's perception had been quite weak back then. Even if an evil spirit was circling behind her, she might not be able to detect it. It wasn't until last year, when her power reached a bottleneck, that she started studying perception spells. She used it to make up for her shortcomings in battle. Plus, she came from a small family, so she could understand Manit. She saw her reflection in Manit. Count him in. He'll join my team. I'll lead him, Jalanash said. Back at the scene, Manit and Orderon finally passed Pamela's test. Of course, that was if Pamela secretly went easy on him. It couldn't be helped. If Pamela really gave them a hard time, all the players together wouldn't be able to pass. As for whether they gave them a hard time or not, it depended on Pamela's impression of them. For example, the group of players not far away, Pamela's impression of them couldn't be worse. The 6 people standing in the distance all didn't look good. The woman in the lead's face was as cold as ice. Aluntarai, they passed. Shut up. I have eyes, Aluntarai said coldly. Aluntarai said coldly. They're just stepping on us. If we didn't find out that spirit's ability first, the 2 of them wouldn't have ended up any better than us. So we're just going to let them go. Let them take all the benefits. Wait, let's follow them, Aluntarai said softly. Aluntarai said softly. I want them to know that it's not that easy to take advantage of me. If there's a special area within 10 square kilometers, I can tell you, Marali said. In addition, I can tell you the location, movement, and speed of all living creatures within a kilometer radius. Are there any special areas within your perception range? Yes, there is a dark spirit swamp on the left in front of us. There are a large number of aggressive spirits in that swamp. Can Ordern and I deal with the spirit in the dark spirit swamp? If it's an ordinary spirit in the dark spirit swamp, it's fine. However, there are some special spirits in the dark spirit swamp that are very powerful. In addition, if you defeat the special spirit, you can fuse with me to improve my characteristics or develop other abilities. Ordern looked surprised and asked, as long as there's a supporting spirit, it's possible, right? Yes. Marali nodded. Is the spirit in the dark spirit swamp an actor like you? Manit asked. No, those spirits can be destroyed. As for the so-called fusion in the setting, it's actually for me to show more of my strength. If you defeat a powerful spirit, I'll show more of my strength. Anyway, that's the game's setting. Alright. Manit smiled bitterly. He had thought that Marali was an ordinary spirit, but it turned out that he was also very powerful. From the intelligence he displayed, he could tell that he was not ordinary. Ordern took out the small bottle that contained the supporting spirit, and also injected magic power to summon his own supporting spirit. Doris, at your service. I'm a combat-type spirit. Doris was a female spirit body, and her body was also cold. It felt like she was the same as the previous terrifying spirit body, but Doris was obviously not as strong as the previous spirit body. Doris, you said the wrong line. Marali reminded. Whatever, don't mind it, Doris said disapprovingly. Her character was obviously more casual, while Malali was more old-fashioned. Doris said that because I'm a combat type for the game's balance, I can only use 1/10 of my power. Also, I can only fight for you for 5 minutes. There's a time limit? Ordern suddenly looked like he was about to cry. I can't help it. I calculated it based on the level of your magic power. If I'm your spirit or the spirit you control, your magic power can only sustain me for 5 minutes at most, and that's under the premise that my power is suppressed. If I go all out, you'll instantly turn into a dried corpse. Manet rolled his eyes. If you devour the spirit in the dark spirit swamp, you can fight longer and increase your power, right? Yes. Doris nodded. Marali, the people following us are still behind us, right? Yes, but they don't plan to make a move for now. Is there a way to hide our tracks? My main function is detection and perception. Hiding isn't part of my ability settings. Manet was helpless. He could tell that it wasn't that Marali couldn't do it, but he couldn't.